Well, welcome back. I have missed you. I have been going through a lot. And if you follow me here, you're probably like, what is going on? And I posted some videos. Actually, they kind of posted themselves. They didn't even have thumbnails because I loaded a bunch of videos about a month ago, several videos, and then decided I just wasn't sure if I liked them. And then life and family trauma and medical illness just got in the way, and I wasn't really even checking my account here because it had just been so much. And then I realized that two videos, I think a week or two ago, posted back to back, and they have and I still haven't fixed them. There's no thumbnail, there's no SEO, there's nothing, and I'm okay with it. You know, I feel like I'm just doing the best I can. And the truth is that, as I've shared a lot of things here, this has been a really difficult year in ways I didn't anticipate. And as many of you know, I've shared in different places that I have been struggling with health issues. I always have an underlying autoimmune disorder. And then this year, it's just been surgeries and issues and things. And then lo and behold, in the last month, my daughter was back in the hospital, and she has a very significant history of hospitalization. And then I actually last week got second-degree burns on my legs because I was trying to make TikTok potatoes, the kind where they're super crispy, and I was not really where I should have been. I was just distracted. I think I really have been in a trauma trance, and because of the hospitalizations for my daughter, they triggered previous ones alongside the medical stuff, and so I just have kind of been shut down, right? So I'm just focusing on my family, my home, my pets, my patients, like that kind of thing. And anyway, back to potatoes, was trying to dump the water. It was boiling water, and I only had one. It was my fault, like I know better. One hand mitt, and it started to shake, and I literally realized I was about to drop it. And so as I got close to the sink, I let go, and the water splashed out. And my legs look like a horror show. Like, I've never had this kind of second-degree burns where they just, every day, they just continue to do things that I did not know skin could do. And it's been pretty painful. So anyway, and I haven't totally figured out, as many of you know, where I want to go with my content. I have made over 400 and something videos here on a lot of the same topics. And some are better than others, right? Some I talk way too fast and I should probably remake, and I might do that. But I'm really finding myself kind of stuck and not knowing where to go, and I don't have the answer yet. But what I will say is this. While I have been not here, I ended up watching a show called Couples Therapy that was originally aired on Showtime. And you can now purchase it on, I think, Amazon, Apple TV, whatever. And it's basically a therapist. She's a psychologist and an analyst who has a doctorate in psychoanalytic theory, I believe, or in psychoanalysis in New York. And she sees different couples each season. And I'd heard about it. I had seen TikToks about it, but I had never watched it. And over the course of this last month, I started watching it. And like I do all things, I watched all 3 seasons. But what I found that I loved so much about it is also, I love the experience of watching other people do therapy. But what I really loved about it, and I've actually told many of my patients to watch it, because what I really appreciate, in addition to how difficult it is to do couples therapy on this side and to be in it on the other side, is that in every season, as the couples unfold, most of them, the therapist, Orna, gets to the dynamics of their childhood and how their unmet needs, their wounds, their childhood trauma, their longings, their attachment dynamics are playing out in the coupleness. And it's really incredible for me to watch, because that is kind of how I think of things. Now, of course, it's not so simple as, necessarily, I know why I do that and now I stop. But I have found that once you realize that, you're acting out something with a partner or yourself, and you start to shift and they shift, and both people are in it for couples therapy. That's often the issue too, right? They come in too late in the process, or one person is just paying their dues to be there, waiting for the marriage to end or whatever, or not really invested, or blaming the therapist or blaming the partner. But when they're both in it and they both can see how they're hurting each other and trying to also heal, I think it's incredible, and I think that you can get a lot of insights. And I had a couple clients watch the show, and they got a little bit tied up in the couples. And when I brought them back into how it triggered their own experience, it's been really powerful. So along those lines, I thought of something I really wanted to share, which is, this book is so old. It is, and you can see the cover, Harville Hendrix book on getting the love you want. And Harville talks about this theory called imago theory or therapy. And really it is about understanding what happens to you in childhood and how those wounds play out. And so I thought I would make this video and we would go through some of the exercises from this book. And if you like this video, then I'll post more exercises and we'll keep going, okay? But the idea is that we are basically choosing people to try to heal. You know this, we talk about it all the time, that we often grow up and choose partners that we think are going to heal our childhood wounds, and then we end up finding ourselves feeling a lot of the same ways that we felt in childhood, or, you know, turning on the partner, blaming the partner, and sometimes we have chosen very hurtful partners. But the idea is that no matter who we choose, we're often trying to heal these wounds, but the other person has no idea, and oftentimes is specifically triggering of those wounds and not realizing it, in some good ways and some bad ways. And so I thought we'd talk about it, and like I said, I'm going to add some more video here where I show you the exercises and you can do them yourself. So let's talk about what the idea is, and it really is this, that I want to read it to you because I think it's important, that he calls it our ghost partner, that our imago, the imago is the ghost partner, and the ghost represents what the ghost of childhood in many ways. And so he says that what the unconscious wants, the unconscious mind, right, the part that is often driving a lot of our thoughts and feelings that we're not aware of, is really trying to heal those childhood wounds. And that, he says, I call this the buried parental image, the imago, after the Latin word image. It is forged in the interaction between how we attempted to get our childhood needs met and how our caretakers responded, going back to attachment theory, to those needs, and etched into a template on our unconscious. Let me say that again, and etched on a template in our unconscious. What we unconsciously want is to get what we didn't get in childhood from someone who is like the people who didn't give us what we needed in the first place. When we meet a match, the chemical reaction occurs and love ignites. All other bets, all other ideas about what we want in a mate are off. We feel alive and whole, confident we found the right person. Unfortunately, since we've most surely chosen someone with the negative traits of our parents as well as the positive traits, and those negative ones that reflect the parent who hurt us in the first place, the chance of a more positive outcome this time around isn't great. And then he talks about we're doomed to repeat the patterns in this search for trying to heal these wounds. And so I thought we would go through the exercises, like I already said. So the first one is a self-knowledge inventory. And this is really important. And I talk about this in I think the bigger course I have, that doing identity work is a huge part of healing. Most of us, all we know is that a lot of who we are has been formed in response to our caregivers, especially if those caregivers were, hypervigilant, demanding us to be hypervigilant, if they were neglectful, whatever it was, it's like a response. And not necessarily have we had the space and time to breathe into and develop safely who we are. A lot of it is like a defense posture, a defensive posture, defense mechanisms against those wounds. And so actually, I think what I'm going to do is probably either screenshot this and I'll post a PDF of it on my Dr. Sage help page, where it goes through, basically you answer the following sentences. And of course, I'll credit this to Harville Hendrix. The idea is for you to get really clear on who you are. Now, this book is quite old, and there's going to just be some stuff that we think about differently culturally or socially. There might be some, differences in terms of how we think about this particular belief system or theory, but I think at the end of the day, you will find it very helpful. Because when I think about one of my greatest wounds in my adult life, it is that I unconsciously, in a different way, but recreated trauma for my own children as a result of my divorce and the partner that I chose. And I still really struggle, although it's gotten so much better, with like always going back to blaming myself. I'm going to make a video about that. That if only I had understood all these things, I wouldn't have stayed, I wouldn't have chosen, and then therefore they wouldn't have wounds. Now the reality is I could have done everything perfectly, and life can just unfold in ways we cannot predict. And that is in part, in some ways, what ended up happening was no one could have predicted what happened. It just was not even on the map of typical marriages. But it did happen, and it did create trauma. And so I guess my point is you could do everything perfectly, which is what we often think of as wounded children, right? If I'm just perfect, I won't have that pain and loss and trauma. I won't be carrying toxic shame. But the truth is, my point is that no matter what you do, things still happen, right? But I do believe that if you're walking around with all this unconscious wound and you have no idea when you choose a partner, and often choose, I believe, too quickly, and this applies to me too in terms of, marriage and having kids, that there just was no time to understand before I was so far in it and invested in kind of staying in it until I couldn't anymore. So that's the first part. Then what we're going to talk about is this next exercise. I'm just going to video myself showing it to you. It is a step-by-step process of identifying previous relationships of yours, previous qualities of those partners, and using them to understand what your imago preview, he calls it, looks like. So I'm going to film that. And then the next exercise is your relationship frustrations. And the last one is your unconscious relationship, which is really the picture at the end of this whole exercise I'm hoping you will find helpful. So, if you like this and you're like, oh, I want to keep going, we will keep going, because the next part, which I've got tons of highlights here, is really Harville talking about the dynamics of what he calls the maximizer and the minimizer. He also calls them, I think, the avoider and the clinger. But really they match up to attachment theory, especially around anxious and avoidant attachment, right? That's one reason why I love this work, because it's very attachment aligned, very childhood aligned. And just for me, maybe it's my special interest. It has always been the thing. Like I think, okay, for example, if I wasn't going to make content about psychology, what would I talk about? And the truth is, I don't really, outside of, loving art and film and writing and things like that, where I don't have expertise, I just have passion, I really don't have a lot of other very defined knowledge bases about anything else. And within psychology, it has always been very heavily weighted towards childhood trauma and the story of the impact of childhood. And of course now I've developed, as I've been trying to learn more about the role of potentially complex trauma alongside high masking autism and how all of that might apply to understanding the self and our lives. So my point is, I really love how he goes into talking about that, and I would love to share more, and there are more exercises to do here, but I'm curious to see if you find this video helpful, and then we will go from there. If not, I have so many videos already around attachment, which you will find helpful, but there are certain exercises in this book that I will obviously credit Harville for that I think could be helpful. So anyway, I will post this next section. I'm going to video myself drawing out the exercises so you can do the same. And then I will end the video, I guess, and I hope you'll let me know how you feel. So anyway, I know the intro was long as usual, and if you don't like long intros, just don't watch me. I can't promise you I won't do it, or I'll post when I start, but please don't leave rude remarks, because right now I'm going to block you and hide you from the channel. If you have constructive feedback, wonderful. I'm sensitive, so put it nicely. But if you don't, I don't really care. I'm going to block you. I'm just done. I'm so over people being rude for the sake of being rude. This is free content. If you don't like it, go find it somewhere else. Honestly, that's where I'm at right now. So most of you know I've been overly sensitive and overly caring, and that is who I am, but there's a part of me right now that just says my window of tolerance is like this. And for those of you, there's so many of you who've been here for a long time and there are new people joining. I love the stuff you write. I've always said I get overwhelmed at responding, but I've been logging in again and reading everything, and it means so much to me. So thank you. It's difficult to show up here when you're also struggling, and I'm not on the other side of things yet. I'm getting there, but I also know that if I don't just get back in it, it won't be good for me to stop for too long, and it won't be helpful for you if you want to have new content. So anyway, I'm going to post some more videos after this one about some things I've thought about, but I'd love to hear your feedback on this, and have a wonderful, safe day, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Use an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of paper turned sideways. Make a column for each of your past relationships, placing the name of one ex-partner at the top of each column. Close your eyes, take several deep breaths, relax, and think back to that first relationship. For a few minutes, I want you to think about when you first met this person, how they looked, what you said to one another, what you did. Try and mentally put yourself back into those past relationships. Ask yourself to feel their effect deeply and to remember deeply their emotional impact. Try and recall what the early stages of your romance were like, how you spent your time together, what it was like the first time you were together in an intimate way. Now I want you to think about the first time you noticed something was wrong, or something you didn't like about your partner. What was it? What did you do? Did you ignore it, or deny that it was happening? Were you shocked? Can you recall the transition from intense romantic love to settling in to a day-to-day relationship? Can you identify the problems and the things that went wrong? Can you remember how you tried to solve your problems or restore your earlier feelings? And how did the relationship end? You may want to just think about that and think through what happened, or you may want to write some of this down. The idea is to remember as vividly as possible that past situation. With all these memories available now, list in the first column all the traits, both positive and negative, that you would use to describe that person. Use adjectives such as kind, mean, warm, manipulative, generous, stingy, boring, charismatic, etc. When you have finished, go back and put a plus sign next to each trait you consider positive and a minus sign next to the negative traits. Study the list again, and on the left side of the column, rank the positive traits in order, placing a 1 next to the traits you liked most, a 2 next to the next best traits, and so on. On the right side of the column, rank the negative traits in the same manner, giving a 1 to the worst traits, and a 2 to the next worst traits, etc. Repeat steps 1, 2, and 3 for each ex-partner. Go back and put a circle around the positive traits that are common to all, or most, if you've had many ex-partners. Underline the negative traits they all have in common. On a new sheet of paper, draw a circle and divide it in half horizontally. On the top half of the circle, write in all of the positive traits that you ranked a 1 or 2 for any or many of your ex-loves. Draw a circle around any that you circled in step 6. On the bottom half of the circle, enter the negative traits ranked 1 and 2, and underline those you underlined in step 6. Now, you have a preview picture of your imago, the kind of person you are unconsciously drawn to. The next 2 exercises, relationship frustrations and your unconscious relationship, will be posted in following videos.